Welcome, adventurers and travel enthusiasts, to the Travel to Money podcast. On this show about world travel, we'll be your guides to exploring the globe while making smart financial decisions. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Sue from Nigel and Sue Adventures on this incredible journey. Together, we'll share insider tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories from around the world, proving that travel doesn't have to break the bank. Since today is our first world travel episode, I'd like to spend some time getting to know Sue and her travel background. But let's kick things off with van life. Sue, how long have you and Nigel been doing van life?
So we bought our van right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Um, Kind of a long story of how we got there. So basically, it's almost 4 years ago that we bought the van. It took us a while to do the conversion. So we did the conversion into a camper van ourselves,
Oh,
and we
cool.
set off on the road in January of 2021. So almost 3 years of living full time in the van.
So full time. Oh, that's incredible. That's a real commitment. Were you nervous to do that or just completely excited?
I've got to say, I was completely excited. And I will say it's only me that's been in the van full time. Nigel actually works away, so which is why he's not here with me now. So he works on a 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off rotating roster. While he's away, I'm still in the van. So yeah, I was very excited. It's something that I had dreamed about for a long time. And I'll never forget that first day when we drove off. Very exciting.
Oh my goodness, that sounds incredible. So where is home for you, like home base? Where did you take off from?
Well, you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not American. Uh, I'm actually Australian, and our home base is in Brisbane, which is about halfway up the east coast of Australia. The first year that we were in the van was 2021. We still had quite a few COVID restrictions in Australia, so we confined our travel primarily to Queensland, which is a huge state, like bigger than
Mhm.
Texas. The second year, so 2022, is when we set off. That was almost 2 years ago, and we've almost completed a circumnavigation of Australia, or a
Oh
lap
my
of
goodness.
Oz, as we call it here.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so exciting. I can only imagine all the things that you've seen in the last few years. I know that you do van life throughout Australia, but where else have your travels taken you?
We have traveled a lot. My life goal is to always have traveled to more places than my age. Up
Oh,
until
cool.
COVID, I was right on. So,
Mhm.
in the middle of the 50s. Obviously, I haven't really traveled overseas since COVID. So, I'm a couple behind at the moment.
Right. Well, that's a lot of different places, and that's countries that you've been to, that you've visited?
Yeah, that's countries. So,
Oh my
I've
goodness.
done a lot of Europe. Nigel and I
Mhm.
met back in the 1990s. We both worked for a large coach tour operator. I was a tour guide, he was a tour driver. You can imagine the story. Um, so, yeah, doing that job, we saw a lot of Europe, but I've also
Mhm.
traveled in the United States, a little bit through Asia, not as much as I would like, and just a couple of other random places in the Pacific as well.
Oh, how cool. Um, One of the things I always ask everyone that I meet when I've heard that they've traveled is like, what is your favorite place or two? It's so hard because every place is so different, but I love to just get that idea from someone. I think it just sparks that dream in me for a new place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always laugh when I get that question because it's so difficult to answer. But I always ask people that question too. I I think I've got different favorites for different reasons. One of
Mhm.
my absolute favorite places is Nepal.
Mhm.
Nigel and I are both real outdoor adventurers. We haven't been there together. That was kind of before we were a couple. Both of us have traveled there. Just being out in those mountains in the Himalaya is incredible. And a big part of traveling for me is the people and the culture. I actually have a degree in sociology, so I'm and
Oh,
anthropology, so I'm quite interested in people and how people live in societies, and what makes people different in different places in the world. So
Mhm.
seeing those people in Nepal who have almost nothing and yet are so happy, it's
Mm.
very humbling, I think, as someone from the first world, to step back and look at our lives. So that's a big part of why I love travel. So Nepal is up there. Other places that I really love, Italy, it's just beautiful. The culture, the food, the people, the wine. What's not to love about Italy? And Cambodia, I really loved. And
Mhm.
another favorite is Turkey. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's four. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Turkey. I had a kind of rough experience on just an overnight there that put me off of it for a bit. Um, but everyone that I know that has been there just raves about it. So that's really incredible. That's a great list. That
Yeah,
sounds really exciting.
it's not the greatest place to travel as a female.
Mm.
I traveled there when I was in my, I think, late 20s with a girlfriend. So, two of us girls on our own, we sure got a lot more attention that we really wanted to. But it's somewhere that I'm really looking forward to going back to.
Oh, that's so incredible. How exciting. I feel the same way when you talk about one, it's hard to answer that kind of question because every place has a different feel to it and you
Mm,
love places for different reasons and so they don't ever have like a real side by side comparison. But I feel the same way about culture and I've done a lot of mission type of work. I've been to Haiti a few times and been to Iraq a couple of times. And there really is something about the joy that people have and the quality of life they can even have in the midst of some really what would be difficult situations as
mm,
Westerners. And it's a real beautiful thing, not just to go and visit there, but to really be impacted by them and to see what we have to learn from all of these different places. It's really a lot of fun.
absolutely. Absolutely. Mm.
So, it sounds like you and Nigel were both adventurous prior to meeting each other, and that has really merged well together. So from the get-go, were you all like, "Let's go travel the world," or did that come up at some point later on?
I think it came up at some point later on. So, Nigel and I have been together for about 11 years. We got together just after I had left my marriage. I have two sons, so
Mm.
they're now in their early 20s. So when Nigel and I met, they were like 8 and 10 years old. So
Aw.
world travel with, I mean, unless you've got a whole lot of money,
Yeah.
it's quite difficult with young children, and they were doing their school thing and sport and what have you. So it was something that we talked about, that we knew
Mhm.
that we both really wanted to do. Back then, I think when we were first together and we were a little bit younger, we our adventures were more. So we both really love mountain biking. We love kiteboarding. We love hiking. So we've always been real outdoor adventurers, and we did a couple of international trips. We went to the Cook Islands to go kite surfing, and also to
Oh.
Sri Lanka. We've done a big mountain bike ride in New Zealand. So, but yeah, this idea of long term travel is something that we kind of talked about once the kids are grown up and finished school, once the kids are grown up and finished school. And I think, guess we've just kind of manifested that into our lives now.
Tell me real quickly, kiteboarding, which one is that? I've never done
Oh,
that before, and I'm just, like,
kite surfing
curious.
or kite boarding is where you're standing on a board with straps on your feet, like a snowboard, similar kind of shape to a
Okay.
snowboard, and then you have a belt around your waist, a harness, which is attached to a kite, which kind of looks a little bit like a round parachute type
Okay.
sail, which you
Yeah.
pump up the leading edge. So you put air into the leading edge, and then you've got a handle which you steer it with. So
Oh, okay. Very
yeah,
cool. That sounds exciting. I'll have to
yeah,
give it a
Google it.
try.
It's pretty cool. So you can can go quite fast, and a lot of people do a lot of tricks and jumps and all sorts of, it's a lot of fun.
I find that as I'm getting older, I am slower to to try certain adventures, but I tend to be. I'm not quite an adrenaline junkie, but I'm kind of in that direction. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I don't know if that quite fits that, but that sounds like a lot of fun.
I think that for us, we are really conscious of living life now and making the most of the time that we have. And our actual motto is adventure has no age limit.
Mm.
So we don't want our age to stop us from doing things. Although sometimes we'll be in the middle of doing something and I'll be like, I'm too old for this. But it's definitely, it's definitely something that is we're very conscious of. We're not getting any younger, so we need to
Mhm.
do these things now while
Right.
we're still mobile enough and our knees are still good enough to be able to do these sort of things.
I love that. I have been thinking a lot lately about what it means to really do life well as we get older. I mean, I know I feel my age starting to impact my body now, and so I have to think more about how to care for my body so
Mm.
that I can do those things that I love to do. And I watched that new Blue Zone documentary on Netflix. Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I have. That
Um,
was incredible.
and I'm so fascinated by that. And because folks like you and I who love travel so much and living on the road, a big part of the whole Blue Zone thing is good food, which isn't exactly easy when you travel a lot. Are you all able to manage that on the road?
We have a pretty good setup in our van. We've got a gas stove, so propane, 3 burner gas stove, and an oven. So we can pretty much cook anything in the van that we would be able to cook in a house.
Oh, that's cool.
Neither Nigel nor I eat meat, so makes it a little bit easier. We kind of made that decision. I mean, I already wasn't eating meat. Nigel does eat a little bit, but we made the decision when we first moved into the van that we would never cook meat in here just because of the smells in a small space.
Hmm.
And, you kind of get that film on the walls and what have you. So we're quite adventurous in the kitchen. I think the biggest challenge is it's difficult for both of us to cook, and we love to cook together. So
Okay.
that is a bit tricky when we're in the van. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to cook today and you can cook tomorrow. So whenever
Right.
we're staying with friends, our friends love it when we come to stay because we're like, can we make a meal for you? And they're like, okay. And we get in the kitchen together and kind of take over and
Oh, I
cook up
love
something
that.
amazing. Yeah.
How frequently do you have to grocery shop in order to, because I would imagine you're limited in space for storing food, right?
Our fridge is 130 litres. I'm not sure what
Okay.
that is in an imperial measurement. So it's
Hmm.
maybe about 2.5, maybe 3 feet tall, 2.5, 3 feet tall, and about 2 feet wide. I'm just looking at it. Um, so I usually, if I'm on my own, I'll shop once a week. But when Nigel's here, obviously we go through the food a bit quicker. We'll probably do one larger shop and then do a smaller shop in a week just to stock up on a few fresh fruit and vegetables that we might have run low on. So,
Right.
yeah, we do have quite a bit of storage in here. Where I'm
Oh, that's
sitting
good.
here, there's a large storage cupboard underneath here. So we have a lot of canned food and packaged food
Oh,
underneath
right.
here as well. So, yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Um,
I think that finding community is one of the biggest challenges of traveling. But I
mm,
have to say, traveling in 2023, 2024 is a lot, in some ways, is easier than it was traveling when I was first traveling in the 80s and 90s because we can have this online community. Easier
right.
and harder. Like back
Hmm.
then, you had to meet people when you were traveling because you didn't have your phone in your hand. But now we can be in a quite remote area, and so long as we've got signal, we can be in touch with our loved ones. We can,
Hmm.
so I'm finding that I'm meeting a lot of people online and forming relationships with people online. Some of them I don't, you know, meet. Um, maybe not for years or something, but you do kind of form that community. So there is that online travel community, I think.
That's very true. I'm looking forward to talking to Pablo. He's one of the other co-hosts that will be doing an expat life podcast with me, and he is in the process of really helping people to build that, not even just for folks who travel, but he said that expats that he deals with, so he helps people move overseas. Like he
Okay.
runs a company that does relocation for folks. And he said that he noticed that one of the most common things that happened was that they're calling him back a year or two later to move back. And a lot of
Mm.
times it's because of that community connection and figuring that part out. Either that or a couple moves, and he said it'll be one person that it was their dream, but not the other person's dream.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
making those come together, I know can be difficult. So I'm excited to learn from him about what he's learned
Mm.
about building community and how to help people do that. Um, I know for me in Spain, I actually feel now like I have more of a home community there than I do in the States. And not in the States as a whole, but in the States, everyone's so spread out. I
Mm.
don't know my neighbors necessarily that live right next door. I'm sure there are some places that are like that in the US where you still know all of your neighbors, but I know all of my neighbors in Spain. You just walk out the door and you meet people. Um, and because of Instagram now, I met so many people on this last trip to Spain. It was insane. I've made so
Yeah.
many new friends and that's been wonderful. But I feel like I've developed a community there. And some of that has been through Facebook, which has been surprising to me because Facebook isn't really in the US anymore. Instagram is like the big thing here.
Mm.
But in Spain, you can connect with a lot of expat groups in different areas, which isn't something you necessarily do when you're on the road per se. But is there any way that you've specifically been able to meet people on the road, like online, like any sort of community groups or anything like that?
Mainly through Instagram, just,
Oh,
you know, people that you befriend on Instagram, and then you see, oh, where are you? You know, you're going to be in the same place. So you arrange to meet up. So there's definitely that. And there's also just those random meetings. Someone will come along and recognize you or recognize the van from Instagram. Or, gosh, the place I've been staying at the moment, I've been staying in this free camp. And I think I've kind of come and gone a few times over the last 4 weeks, and I've had 3 people recognize me there from
oh my
YouTube. So
goodness.
I know, and our YouTube channel is tiny, but I guess people that are into what we're into and are in that space, it's not like just walking down the street someone recognizes me. So
Right.
I'm not
Oh
Mr.
my
Beast.
goodness. I no, oh my gosh, that's so funny. I had that happen for the first time in Spain, and it was only because I was in the town that I've talked a lot about on my YouTube channel. It's not
Mm.
like I was wandering through Switzerland or something
Yeah.
and someone just recognized me. But funny story, I was cleaning the house that I was selling to some friends, and I was just aw I mean, I was sweaty, I didn't have any
I
makeup
imagine.
on, my hair
Yeah.
is pulled back. I look awful, and I am having the most, like, stressful day, and my friend who's helping me clean the house is like, "Nicole, like, Lee wants you at the front door." So I come to the front door, and he's got a couple standing there with him, and the woman goes, "You're Travel to Money." It was the first time that had ever happened to me, and of course, it happened in, like, the worst, like, moment.
Yep. Yeah.
But it
It's
was so
always the
funny,
way.
and they were wonderful, and now we've just become great friends, and, it was a great experience, but it was also very strange to be recognized in that way. But like you said, it's a very niche space, and they were there
Mm.
because of some of that, and so, yeah, it's not like Mr. Beast, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's still funny. It's still really, like, surprising when it happens, I'm sure. Well, this has been so much fun getting to know you a little bit, and I really can't wait for future episodes. For those of you listening, join us next week for an episode all about van life in Australia. Be sure to subscribe and let us know any topics you want us to discuss on this podcast. We would love to hear from you. As always, I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.